Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, I'd like to call the Finance Committee for Tuesday, March 12th to order. Roll call vote. Alder Galvin.
Here.
Alder Corpus Dax.
Present.
Alder LaFave. Here. And Alder Dorf. Here. Okay. Entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion approved by Alder LaFave, second by Alder Corpus Dax. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from the February 26, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alder Corpus Dax, second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Regular business, D. All right, number 1, resolution authorizing a 2019 transfer of $3,575.58 from the contingency fund for a one-time cost related to equipment repairs on air conditioner pump and Helen control panel in IT server room. Staff.
I'll give you a quick little update, and then I also have our IT person here. These are, the IT department does have about a $3,000 budget for maintenance, for equipment repair. But these both items happened in early 2019 and were not planned for. They were one-time hits. And so we recommended that we would ask for contingency dollars. I will let Mike explain the two situations if you have any questions.
Do you have questions? You guys, does anyone have any questions?
I have no questions.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
Thank you. Motion to approve.
A motion by Alder Galvin,
Second.
second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good, thank you.
All right.
We want
No.
to thank Mike.
Number 2, discuss with possible action on a request from the Finance Director to approve contingency funding of $12,500 for a comprehensive financial management planning report using an outside service. Staff.
Okay, I did include a memo to try to explain what the $12,500 would get us in a year. Kind of goes back to this last year with the budget that we had, the situation that financially we're in. Finance Committee has actually come back and asked for just a much more higher level analysis, comprehensive analysis, and it's everything. We've talked about the Moody ratings, we've talked about planning out a few years in advance what our budgets are going to look like, looking at 2019 bonding, how is that going to affect our debt levels, what is the next 5 years with a capital improvement plan, how can we, again, change our ratings, and these are all things that our current staff could handle. I'm just not sure if we can get it done as fast as we would like to get it done before we do 2019 bonding. We were at a conference a couple weeks ago, and Ellers is a financial, they're financial advisors in the public sector. And we just sat down and talked to them and told them what kind of the needs we had. And they submitted the attached proposal of things that they could do. And so kind of went list through all the items and things that they could do for us for a total of $18,000. And they said in about 120 days, they could come back with a report. And it would come back and it would basically cover a lot of the things that the Finance Committee has asked us to pull together. Again, we would be looking for $12,000 from contingency because a large portion of this has debt management in it, and we could take the $6,000 right from the debt service fund. So the $12,000 would be unbudgeted. And again, this is not services we can't do, but it would allow us, one, they have the expertise, years of experience, and they could get it done probably faster than internally we could do this. Probably one time, it would probably one time, or we would try to put it in next year's budget if it was beneficial and we wanted to continue this service. But as an example, they brought us a full example. This is the same exact management plan that they did for the city of Platteville. So they had a full example. They gave us a complete example of what report it would come back with, and then they would be, they would actually, and again, I kind of went through the different things that they would help. They would help us on our credit profile and ways that we can improve our credit rating. Look at forecasts for our next year's budget. It would also help project out when kids are going to be closing and how that would affect our general fund or our general levy. It would also help forecast, and they would also work with us on the levy limit worksheet, make sure that we're maximizing and be able to forecast that in the future. They would work on us, again, with the capital planning portion, which is like our CIP. They would do debt modeling, and take our 5-year plan or however far out we go on with our planning, and they would also forecast out our debt, how that would affect our general levy, our levy needs for the next 5 years, and then in the budget, I think, let's see, they would include some workshops, and they would actually do presentations at different stages of the process to whoever we choose we want to present this information for, and then they would bring a final report in with recommendations and modifications if we needed changes to our policies. So they would do an overall, just a review of all of our financials. And so that is the service that they're offering. And so that is something that we did not budget for or plan for, and that's why we're looking to see whether or not that was something that the council would be, or the committee would be willing to approve $12,500 for this report.
So it says estimated June bond issuance. Is that when we thought we were bonding? I guess I thought we were bonding earlier than June. But is that, can you?
The last couple of years, we have bonded, we have issued in May, I think was the last 2 years, I brought it with me. Last year, we actually we issued in April, and the year before it was May. But in the last 11 years, we've done more than half of the year, the last 11 years, we've done it 4 times in June, 2 times in July, and then, so it's right in the ballpark. It's between April, May, June, or July in the last 11 years, we've been doing it. Over half the time it was in June or July.
It might take the new mayor time to.
And that was part of the
Up to
reason
speed.
the current mayor did not want to go out and take out debt right before he's out of office. He wanted to let the new mayor have some say in it. And so we wouldn't have, I don't believe that we would have asked the mayor, in April, May, for first or second meeting to take up the bonding request. So we figured this would be a process. We would be bringing it to you a couple times throughout the process, throughout the spring, early summer, so you have more chance to review it, ask questions before we would actually bring in the 2019 final bonding. So the timing is very close to probably what we have historically. It's been in the same range.
And this report's going to contain recommendations for us for going forward for the next 5 years.
Correct. It's going to help. They're going to help look at projections for our budget, projections for our levy limit, recommendations for debt. And they were also, what she's pointing out is they also recommended that they would do some workshops in which they would present and work with us or whatever committee or team that they would present to and say what their recommendations were.
And we'd be able to track, if we follow those recommendations, track the results based on doing a comparison to their projections.
Correct, yep, and so everything would be based on a 5-year projection then in the report that the final report they would bring back to us.
At the end, I'm sorry, at the end here, it says this would, the 18,750 is for that, but then it also talks about the tax increment district. Do you recommend that we would include that? That was an additional 750. Would that be advantageous for us to also?
That would be, they will take into consideration when a TIF would naturally terminate.
Per
And that would be
each TIF.
part of this project. Yes, if we decide to go through and do, it was only $750 per TID. That is something that we could move forward. I'm not asking for that at this point. And then we would take that out of the
Something we
TIF
would look at.
funding. So it would be, every fund, TIF would get charged $750 if we decide to move forward with it.
Okay.
But that is, I think the focus right now would be less about how is our TID performing and what we could do potentially different in our TIDs. I think that in the next 120 days, I think we would want to focus on the capital improvement, the 2019 bonding, projections of our next budgets. And then we could also take on their services at a later date for those TIDs.
Okay. See, it's very.
Any more discussion on this?
I mean, is there, it looks like
A motion?
No, it looks like it's very well.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve
Oh,
the.
too late. You can be second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, he did, okay. A motion by Elder Galvin to, there is more discussion. Yes.
I just have a question, you can still do the motion.
Okay, well, all right. A motion by Elder Galvin, second by Elder LaFave. Discussion.
Yeah, Diana, I know that, we're looking at, the purpose of this is the capital improvement plan. But I'm still looking at this from a council perspective, and one of the things that I've really struggled since being on board is understanding how all these pieces operate together. And so when I look at, the TID component of this, I guess I would just like to maybe hear a little bit more from you. I know what you say you're not recommending that at this time, but it sounds like you're not recommending that because your focus is on the capital improvement plan. Is there value for us to be looking at the TID component? Because again, it's when I start looking at all of these major needs that we need over the next 5 to 10 years, that clearly has to contribute to the conversation.
Yes, we could certainly move forward with it. Outside of this project, we could actually approve that $750 per TID, and I wouldn't actually have to bring it to committee. So I mean, if you want to recommend and move forward with it, that is a different funding source, so it's only $750 per TID. We certainly can incorporate that and go back to Ellers and say that we want to include that in the process. They were certainly going to take a look at all of our TIDs and when they're naturally term, and so then see how that would affect and how it would help our general levy in the future. But when they go down and do a deep dive into that, the TID, they would look whether or not there should be some inter-fund transfers, if there's something else that we should be doing, should we be trying to close this one, should we maybe, maybe lop off a chunk of it and maybe close out a portion of it, because if there's no other changes that's going to happen there. So that would be the next step. And we certainly can move forward with that. I think they definitely would include that, and obviously that was part of their proposal.
Okay, so the timing of that just doesn't necessarily impact the bond request, so that's sort of an addendum that we could add later.
Correct.
And is it something that perhaps, if we move forward with this core package, that internally we could handle the TID performance component as an addendum? I'm just not familiar with what one of these packages or reports would look like, so.
We could. The only thing is, I think for $750, maybe for the first year, and since we could charge it to the TIF, it might be worth it, because they're offering cash flow analysis, they're offering quite a few other things and reporting for the TIDs, which we already do, but their expertise and their knowledge, they may have some tips that maybe we don't know of, or that they could recommend for us.
So each respective TID could fund that?
Yeah.
Or-
We would
Oh,
have
I'm
to
sorry,
pay
I
for it.
missed that.
Yeah, sorry.
right.
So that is part of the reason why I didn't ask for it right now. I'm really worried about the contingency fund, the money.
Right,
The
right.
TID,
Right.
at any point, we can decide to move forward with it, and I may not even pick all the TIDs. If we have a TID that just is not, there's no activity, it's kind of slow, we're thinking about maybe closing it. I may not pay the $750, but we can pick and choose which TIDs we wanted to have them move forward with it.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I missed that.
No.
And then we wouldn't have to have approval.
Correct, because it's
You can
only
just-
$750 for.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
for a
it's
TID.
that, below that.
Right, and this
threshold.
being coming
Right.
out of the general fund, I needed the approval at the contingency level.
Okay, and I do have one more question.
Yep.
I see in here that it's the 5-year capital improvement plan that's going to be talked about. From your experience, again, I mean, 5 years isn't going to dig us out of the situation, so from your experience, are they doing a 5-year because that's what we're asking for, or do you see other communities do even longer term capital improvement plans, like a 10-year or 20-year? Although we're not gonna have cars in 20 years, right?
Right.
I think 5 was standard, however, we have actually asked all our department heads to put out their requests for a longer period of time. But longer than that, I think that's more the standard. I think no matter what municipality we talk about, we've been at some trainings where they talk about capital improvement plans, and it's typically out 5 years. Those other ones are are out farther, and they're coming, and they're gonna take, okay, maybe it's not in the 5 years, but we know at 7 years that they're gonna put a larger item in there, and they're kind of anticipating it. But I think 5 years standard.
Okay, and this may cross over a little bit into INS, but I'll tell you, at least from my perspective, one of the main reasons I'm asking is, roads is on everybody's mind, and it's gonna take a generation to fix that issue, and kind of the feedback that we've been getting a lot at INS committee is, it's the timing of it, right? We want to do it at the same time we're doing utilities, at the same time that we're doing storm sewer, and so again, that may, are all those departments doing those 5-10-year forecasts so that our public works department can get all those things on the right cycle, so that we can be making appropriate bond requests for those types of repairs?
Because Steve is the director of public works, he does coordinate all the sanitary storm, and pavement. The only one that he doesn't typically, he doesn't take into consideration is water, but he shares that and works back and forth with water, or if there's any other fiber or any other kind of infrastructure, he doesn't coordinate that, but he's got some of the larger pieces of infrastructure, and he is coordinating that.
And again, I'm not necessarily trying to get into the INS piece of it,
Right.
so much as I'm trying to get at the funding piece of it.
Correct.
Because, I mean, if Steve laid out a 10-year plan for us and said we're gonna do all this, it's all for naught if we don't have a way to pay for it. And that's why I'm kind of asking, maybe we get a 5-year plan in here, is it more common for us to be looking, or do other municipalities look at more longer term?
From the trainings we've been going to, it's typically it's 5 years.
Okay.
At least that's what they present out. I'm sure there may be, have some forward looking, but they don't actually present out normally past 5 years.
And would you potentially then update this on a rolling basis?
Yes, yes.
So this could come back as an annual thing, or maybe you discover it's something you could do in-house?
Correct, that is our goal at this point, to do 1 year, see how it goes, whether or not we want to try to budget for that at this year, for in future years, or if it's something that we can continue to update, and then every couple of years, maybe just go back to them. And have them, give us
Once
their
you
opinion
get a
again.
template, right?
Yep,
you get
yep.
it. Yeah, it would be very valuable. Okay.
Okay.
All right,
thank you.
any other discussion before we vote? The motions have already been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 3, resolution authorizing transfer of 2019 budgeted revenue and expenses between accounts.
Do you feel like we've done this before?
Yes.
This is,
Yes, we
This is
have.
gonna be the third time we're doing it. We found two more accounts that our Parks Department found. And again, it's because of the way we budget at the level which we budget for, and if we wanna make any adjustments to it, thank you, there were actually 5 counts that changed. Mostly, again, Triangle Sports, area, they're just changing it, so that they're combining it and putting it into the Parks Department. And so it's because we budgeted at that level, we have to move it. Going forward, that way it makes it easier. Our 19 actuals will now match where the budget is, and it'll match up as we go to the 2020 budget. So,
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Alder Galvin,
Second.
second by Alder Corpus Dax. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, request that the City of Green Bay Sustainability Commission Renewable Energy Work Plan be referred to the Finance Committee and Finance Director to review cost estimates associated with this work plan. Renewable energy is very expensive, so having a transition plan to move toward renewable energy for the City of Green Bay will require large capital budget requests at a time when the city can't afford these costs.
It's not biased.
What?
That's not written in biased, right?
No, it's under objective. Okay.
I can start, and then I'm gonna allow our Chief of Staff to step in. We did meet on this item, and just a couple things we want to remind you that sustainability is only advisory.
Mhm.
So at this point, there's no recommendation that's
Right.
come out of it. And at this point, no department has implemented anything, so at this point, I can't give you any estimates, any costs, because there has been no recommendation, nothing to implement. So if the question is how much is gonna cost, at this point, I can't pull those costs together.
Right.
But then I'm gonna let the Chief of Staff kind of take over and add some more information here.
Thanks. Celeste Jeffries, Chief
Latino.
of Staff. So yes, Sustainability Commission has been meeting since October, actually once a month. There's 9 members on the commission, just to give you some basic information. We have people who are in the industry in sustainability, as well as people who are citizens who are interested in the issue. So we have, what we're doing right now is sort of gathering information from various departments. Parks came and gave a presentation, Development came and gave a presentation, of course DPW came, they were our first presentation. Excuse me. We've had a number of community groups, meaning people who are doing that kind of work, that advocacy work statewide. Tomorrow we'll have someone else come, Brown County Conservation League, I think is going to come. Right now, there are no recommendations that we've made. If we were to have any kind of recommendation we would need to ask for departmental action, since the Sustainability Commission is only, as Diana had pointed out, advisory. So right now, there are no financial impacts. We do have staff members, me, my intern, This is my intern Morgan Benbenek, but I have another intern working on some sustainability issues. All my interns are from UWGB. So at this point, anything that we're spending on sustainability is really about staff, research, and input. There are no financial impacts at this point.
So might a good motion be to receive and place on file at this point?
That would make sense to me, Alder.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. Is there any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Receive and place on file. Okay, so, consideration with possible action on notice of decision from the U.S. Department of the Interior regarding the intent to take land into trust called parcel. Would you want us to go right into closed session on this one?
Yes.
All right. Then
Motion to go into closed session?
motion to go into closed session is Alder Corpus-Dex, second by Alder Galvin. Alder Corpus-Dex, you want to read the,
Sure. The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to Section 19.85 IG Wisconsin Stats for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The committee may therefore reconvene in open session pursuant to Section 19.852 Wisconsin Stats to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
all those in favor of going to closed session?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
So
And then our next
no
two.
sure you all from St. Norbert.
Okay,
Motion to go back
into open
session,
Second.
okay, motion to go back into regular order of business by Alder Corpus-Dex, second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I will make the motion to have staff do as directed in closed session. And Alder Galvin seconded that, and all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Staff, go forth as directed.
Thank you.
All right, next. All right, we'll do this one really slowly till we get back. Well, you're right, 5-minute bathroom break.
Sorry.
We just have to allow this. Because all we're gonna do is go back into closed session
I'm
again.
gonna bring something up about the claims.
Okay, but that's in closed session. We're going into closed session for one.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Next item on the agenda is the report of the Claims Committee. And does anyone have anything they wish to discuss about the Claims Committee?
Yes.
Okay, so that means we will need to go into closed session. So I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion.
Second, and do you want me just to read it, you guys? Sure. The council may convene in closed session pursuant to Section 19.851G Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The council may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to Section 19.852 Wisconsin statutes to report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. All those in favor of going to closed session? Aye. Opposed? We're in closed session. Ready to session?
Should go back in open session.
By Alder Galvin, second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor? Aye. We're back in open session. I'll entertain a motion to receive, to approve, to what? To approve the report of the Claims Committee.
Motion to approve?
Motion approved
Second.
by Alder Corpus-Dex, second by Alder LaFave. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of the Finance Director.
Just want to give you a quick update. We are finalizing, getting or prepared for our audit, which is the last week of March. Shank will be in. The clerk's department, of course, office is ramping up for the April election, and they have scheduled, or they're tentatively scheduling the board of review for the later part of April.
Thank you. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Informational, the next Finance Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 26th at 4:30 p.m. And the contingency account is at, well, not anymore,
That was
but
at $112,076. Tonight, we approved $3,575 and 58 cents and 12,500, which brings us down to 96,000 and change. And at council on 3.5, there was some money obligated for legal fees, and I think that was around 29,000.
Mhm.
So that would bring us down to about 66,000 left.
It's only March.
Jeez.
It's only March. Yeah.
You have to have a
I guess
bake
I want
sale.
money for my birthday party. huh?
All right. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion adjourned by Alder Kurbisiak, second by Alder Galvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Okay, for off.